It is day 12 of testimony in the high-stakes murder trial of Chad Daybell. Linda Larson has been following the case for us. Linda, who did we hear testimony from today?
Todd, Stephen Schultz, a former colleague and friend of Chad Daybell, was the first on the stand. He owns the Springville, Utah funeral home where Chad was a sexton. He was also the one that Chad called to come get Tammy Daybell's body after she died.
So he said he wanted to get this done just as quickly as he could. His words, not mine.
Stephen Schultz is a former neighbor and friend of Chad Daybell that worked with him at a Springfield cemetery. He was from the funeral home that took Tammy's body to prepare it for burial. He said Chad told him he wanted the funeral as soon as possible and that he didn't want an autopsy. He said that despite the fact that he and Chad were friends, those were some red flags about Tammy's death.
Did you have a discussion with Jason about Tammy on the drive back?
I did.
What kinds of things did you bring up and say to Jason in that conversation?
We both felt there was a feeling of being rushed through this whole process. And I actually turned to Jason and I said, do you think he killed her?
Next on the stand this morning was Ron Arnold, a realtor and friend of the family from Salem. Arnold says Chad asked about putting a second home on his property for he and his new wife, Lori, to live in when she got out of prison. Arnold asked Chad if he knew where Tylee and JJ, Lori's missing children, were.
After we had spoken with the kids for a while, there was, confusion and grief and a lot of sadness. And turning away from the kids, I asked Chad, have you considered an autopsy? Assuming the answer would be yes for such a young, vibrant woman. And his answer to me was no. So I pressed again, are you sure you don't want to do an autopsy? And then I turned and faced the children and Chad at the same time and said, don't you want to know? These girls carry the same DNA as their mother. Wouldn't you want to know if there's anything that can be prevented in the future? And he said no, very calmly.
There were a few fireworks in the courtroom today between John Pryor and Ron Arnold. We'll have more on that tonight at 10. Reporting in the studio, I'm Linda Larson.